Suffering has a way of softening the heart, shaping us into individuals who are not only aware of the pain around us, but who are also moved to respond to it. When a person has suffered deeply, they become more attuned to the suffering of others. Their pain opens their eyes to the hurt in the world and creates in them a deep compassion that others may not possess. People who have faced significant trials understand pain on a level that many others cannot. They know what it feels like to carry a heavy burden, to cry out in despair, and to long for relief. This intimate knowledge of suffering leads them to empathize with others in ways that are beyond words. They don't just see a person in need. They feel their need deeply because they have walked that road themselves. This level of empathy is not something that can be easily taught. It is earned through experience. The sufferer, the chief, the suffering they've endured often compels them to act, to reach out, to offer a hand or a word of encouragement. Compassion in its truest form is not just a feeling but a movement toward others. It's a willingness to sit with someone in their grief, to bear their burden with them, and to be present in the midst of their pain. Those who have suffered deeply know that sometimes the greatest comfort comes not from offering solutions, but from simply showing up and sharing in the moment of pain. Furthermore, the suffering they've experienced often leads them to cultivate a spirit of kindness and understanding toward others. They are less likely to judge, more inclined to offer grace, and quicker to forgive. Their own trials have taught them that no one is immune to pain, and so they extend the same compassion to others that they so desperately needed when they were in the midst of their own suffering. In this way, suffering becomes a tool for molding a person's heart, allowing them to mirror the compassion they have received in their own time of need. The deep empathy birthed from pain does not fade, it strengthens, and it often becomes the defining characteristic of their character. It is a compassion that doesn't just feel, it acts and it heals. Resilience is a quality that is forged in the furnace of suffering. People who have experienced deep pain and hardship develop a strength that is not immediately apparent, but becomes evident over time. Resilience doesn't come from avoiding difficulties or running away from pain. Rather, it is cultivated by enduring them, by standing firm in the face of adversity, and by refusing to be broken by the storms of life. When a person has suffered deeply, they discover an inner strength they didn't know they had. At first, it may feel impossible to bear the weight of their burdens, and they may wonder how they will survive. But with each passing day, they begin to see that they are not only surviving, they are enduring. They are standing tall despite the wind, and they are learning to navigate through the pain with a quiet determination. This process of enduring hardship was the chief, over time, builds resilience. It teaches them that even in the darkest moments, they are capable of rising again. Deep suffering often reveals the truth that resilience is not about avoiding pain or pretending that everything is fine. It is about facing pain head-on and continuing to move forward. The resilience that people develop after enduring suffering is not a passive strength. It's active, it's deliberate, and it is sustained by an unwavering hope that, even in the most trying times, there is still a way through the storm. People who have suffered deeply learn how to pick themselves up after each fall, knowing that the struggle is part of the process of becoming stronger. As time passes, they become more capable of handling future challenges. What once would have seemed insurmountable may now appear manageable. The trials they've faced build their emotional and spiritual endurance, equipping them to face whatever life throws their way. Their resilience becomes a testament to the fact that while suffering may bend them, it does not break them. Instead, it refines them, making them more capable of withstanding the challenges of life and often even emerging from them with a renewed sense of purpose and strength. Suffering has a unique way of stripping away the arrogance and pride that often cloud a person's perspective. When a person has endured deep pain, they are often humbled in ways that nothing else can achieve. The harsh realities of suffering bring with them the realization that life is fragile, that control is often an illusion, and that we are all, in the end, vulnerable to the uncertainties of existence. People who have suffered deeply no longer walk through life with the same sense of invincibility or entitlement that they may have once held. They know that their strength, their success, and their well-being are not solely of their own making, but are often the result of grace, mercy, and circumstances beyond their control. This humbling process is not immediate, but over time, as a person faces the depths of their sorrow, they come to understand the limits of their own power. They recognize that no matter how hard they try, they cannot always control what happens to them, and that there are forces at work far beyond their understanding. It is this realization that leads to a deep sense of humility. People who have suffered deeply are often quicker to acknowledge their dependence on others, whether it be on family, friends, or a higher power. They have seen firsthand how fragile life is and how easily things can change, and this knowledge makes them more willing to rely on the support of others. Moreover, this humility often brings with it a greater sense of gratitude. Was the chief, having suffered, they are no longer quick to take their blessings for granted. They understand that every good thing, every moment of peace, was the chief, is a gift that can be taken away in an instant. Because of this, they become more humble in their interactions with others, less judgmental, and more willing to extend grace. The trials they have faced teach them that no one is above hardship, and that each person's story is shaped by both triumphs and struggles. As a result, their humility transforms them into more compassionate, understanding individuals who do not see themselves as superior to others, but as equals, all walking through this world with our own battles to face. Suffering has a way of shifting our focus from the trivial to the significant. When a person faces profound pain, the noise of everyday life often fades, and what once seemed important may lose its value. In the midst of their struggle, people who have suffered deeply begin to search for deeper meaning in their lives. The questions they once took for granted now demand answers. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my suffering? How can I make sense of the pain that I am enduring? These questions, though painful, often lead individuals to a more profound understanding of themselves and the world around them. For many, suffering acts as a catalyst for discovering a higher purpose. It forces them to reevaluate their priorities, to look beyond the surface of their existence, and to search for something more lasting. People who have suffered deeply all find that their pain is not meaningless, but part of a greater story. It is through this lens that they can begin to see their suffering as a tool, one that refines and shapes them into the person they were always meant to be. What was the chief? What once seemed like an insurmountable obstacle can eventually be understood as part of their greater purpose, a stepping stone to something more meaningful. This deeper sense of purpose doesn't always come quickly. For some, it may take years of reflection and growth to understand how their suffering fits into the larger tapestry of life. But as they walk through their pain, they begin to realize that their journey is not just survival. It is about transformation. They are being shaped, molded, and prepared for something greater than they had imagined. Often, they come to see their pain as a tool not only for their personal growth, but also for helping others. Their experiences, once painful and isolating, become a powerful testimony to others who are struggling. It is through their suffering that they find a calling, a reason to live beyond their own pain, and a way to serve others who are walking similar paths. Suffering has a profound way of turning a person's gaze inward. When individuals are confronted with deep pain, their perspective on life shifts, and they often begin to ask more significant, often difficult, questions about who they are and what they truly believe. In the midst of trials, people who have suffered deeply find themselves reflecting on their lives in ways that they may not have done before. The distractions of the world fade, and what remains is the inner turmoil and questioning that pain often brings. This introspection becomes a necessary part of their healing process, was the chief, as it helps them to understand not only the reasons for their suffering, but also the deeper meanings that lie beneath the surface. As people face their pain, they often begin to examine their own hearts, their beliefs, and their values. Suffering has a way of bringing to light the things that are truly important in life. It challenges them to look at themselves honestly, without the masks they may have worn before. The questions that arise are not always easy to answer, but through this internal dialogue, people begin to discover who they really are. They might come to realize that their former understanding of success, happiness, and fulfillment was shallow or misplaced. In this deep reflection, there is often a reordering of priorities, a reshaping of one's worldview. What once seemed important, material success, recognition, or social standing, may no longer hold the same value. Instead, deeper connections, personal growth, and spiritual fulfillment may rise to the surface as their new guiding forces. This introspection also leads people to a deeper understanding of their own weaknesses and vulnerabilities. They may come face to face with parts of themselves they have previously ignored or denied. It is through this painful but necessary process of self-examination that they begin to find healing. They acknowledge their limitations, their fears, and their struggles, and in doing so, they can begin to grow beyond them. It is only through this deep and honest introspection that people who have suffered deeply can begin to embrace true growth, transforming their pain into a powerful tool for personal development and a more profound connection with others. Was the chief, when a person goes through deep suffering, it often drives them to a place where they must confront their faith in ways they never have before. Suffering strips away the superficial layers of belief and forces individuals to reckon with the core of their trust in God. In the midst of pain, they may find themselves questioning the goodness of God, His presence, and His timing. Yet, it is in these moments of deep vulnerability that they often come to experience a trust in God that is more profound and real than ever before. Which was the chief? People who have suffered deeply learn that their faith is not based on their circumstances, but on the unwavering character of God. They discover that faith does not always equate to an easy life or an absence of hardship. Instead, it is a choice to trust in God's goodness and faithfulness, even when life seems unfair or uncertain. This kind of trust is not something that can be developed in times of ease. It is forged in the crucible of pain. As individuals wrestle with their grief, anger, and confusion, they slowly come to realize that God is still present, even in the darkest moments. They learn that His presence does not always remove the pain, but it provides a peace that surpasses understanding. A peace that remains even when the world around them is in turmoil. In their suffering, they begin to trust God in ways they never thought possible. They learn that God does not always answer their prayers in the way they expect, but He is always at work behind the scenes. Even in Zach was the chief, even in times of silence or when answers seem far away, they trust that God's plans are higher than their own. They come to understand that God has not bound their understanding of time, and that His timing is perfect, even if it doesn't align with their own desires or expectations. As a result, those who have suffered deeply develop a deeper reliance on God. They learn to trust Him, not just with the big things, but with every detail of their lives. Their faith becomes more intimate, more real, and more unshakable because it is rooted in the knowledge that even in the most painful circumstances, God is sovereign and good. Their suffering, in many ways, has led them to a place of profound trust in God's ability to bring good from the most difficult situations. Suffering teaches patience in ways that comfort and success never can. When a person faces deep pain, they are often forced to wait. Waiting for healing, waiting for answers, waiting for a break in the storm. In the midst of suffering, time seems to stretch endlessly, and every day feels like a struggle to simply keep going. People who have suffered deeply come to understand that healing and resolution do not happen on their own timetable, and that the process of recovery, whether emotional, physical, or spiritual, cannot be rushed. Through this experience, they develop a patience that is born out of necessity, but that becomes a defining trait of their character. This patience is not a passive waiting, but an active endurance. People who have suffered deeply learn that the journey through pain is not something that can be hurried, nor is it something that can be bypassed. They come to understand that every step, every tear, every moment of despair is a part of the healing process. The patience they develop is a quiet strength, a steady persistence in the face of hardship, knowing that things will not always be as they are today. Their patience teaches them to endure, to persevere through the hardest days, and to hold on to hope even when that hope seems distant. Moreover, the patience they cultivate through suffering is often accompanied by a deeper sense of empathy for others who are waiting or struggling. They understand what it means to be in a season of waiting, to long for change, and to feel as though progress is slow or non-existent. This understanding makes them more compassionate and more willing to stand alongside others who are facing similar challenges. They offer not only words of encouragement, but the kind of quiet strength that comes from having walked through the fire themselves. In this way, suffering transforms impatience into resilience, where others may grow frustrated with the passage of time or the slowness of healing. Though those who have suffered deeply learn to wait with a sense of peace and trust. Their patience is no longer tied to a desire for things to change quickly, but to the belief that in time, the pain will have a purpose, and the healing will come in its own perfect season. People who have suffered deeply are often driven by a desire to find meaning in their pain. When life deals a blow that shakes the very foundation of their existence, they are not content to let that experience pass by unnoticed. Instead, was the chief, they seek to understand the deeper significance behind their suffering. This quest for meaning is not about minimizing the pain or pretending it doesn't matter. It is about finding purpose in it, about discovering what it can teach them, and about how it can shape them into a more complete and resilient individual. In the midst of hardship, individuals who have suffered deeply often look for lessons hidden within their trials. They begin to ask themselves difficult questions. What can I learn from this experience? How can this pain change me for the better? They may not always find immediate answers, but the process of searching for meaning in their suffering becomes a source of growth. Through this search, they often find themselves reevaluating their priorities, their values, and their purpose in life. Their pain forces them to examine what truly matters, what is worth holding on to, and what is worth letting go of. In doing so, they often emerge with a renewed sense of clarity, understanding that suffering, while painful, is never without a purpose. This search for meaning is not always a conscious decision. Sometimes it is an unconscious drive to make sense of a life that feels shattered. People who have suffered deeply often refuse to let their pain be wasted. They feel that if they can understand the lessons hidden within their trials, then their suffering will not have been in vain. They begin to see their pain not as a random, senseless event, but as a part of a larger, more intricate plan. Even if they do not fully understand why they are suffering, they believe that there's a greater purpose at work, one that will be revealed in time. This desire to find meaning often leads them to embrace the idea that their suffering has value. They may begin to see it as something that connects them to others who are also struggling as a part of the shared human experience. As they find meaning in their own pain, they develop a greater sense of compassion for others, recognizing that everyone is fighting their own battles. The search for meaning becomes not only a personal journey, but one that can lead to a deeper connection with the world around them. Suffering the chief has a way of removing the focus from the self and redirecting it toward others. When a person has endured deep pain, the experience often shifts their perspective, helping them see beyond their own struggles and recognize the struggles of those around them. It was the chief. People who have suffered deeply often become less preoccupied with their own comfort or desires and more attuned to the needs of others. The pain they have endured teaches them that life is not just about personal happiness or success, but about sharing in the joy and sorrow of those around them. This shift in perspective comes as a result of recognizing the frailty of their own existence. Suffering brings to light the reality that everyone faces challenges and that no one is exempt from the hardships of life. As a result, people who have suffered deeply are often more compassionate and understanding toward others. They have lived through their own battles, and this gives them a unique empathy for those who are struggling. Instead of being consumed by their own problems, they begin with the chief. They begin to look for ways to help others through their struggles as well. The experience of deep suffering also teaches people the importance of connection and community. They come to understand that true fulfillment comes not from isolation or self-centered pursuits, but from being part of a larger whole. They begin to seek relationships that are genuine and grounded in shared experiences. Was the chief, knowing that these connections provide the support and strength needed to endure life's challenges. As they become more attuned to the needs of others, they find that their own sense of purpose is enriched through serving and supporting those around them. This shift toward others is not always immediate. At first, the pain may feel so overwhelming that the person is consumed by their own suffering. But over time, as they heal, they begin to recognize the power of empathy and the importance of extending grace to others. What a chief, their experiences with pain give them the tools to reach out, to listen, and to offer help, not because they are required to, but because they genuinely understand what it means to be in need. They realize that being less self-centered is not just a moral duty, but a path to healing and growth, both for themselves and for those they help along the way. Suffering, in its many forms, has the profound ability to cultivate a deep and unwavering sense of gratitude. People who have suffered deeply often emerge with a perspective on life that is shaped by the awareness that nothing should be taken for granted. The paid chief, the pain they have experienced forces them to reevaluate what truly matters and what they have previously overlooked. What was once ordinary, everyday comforts, simple joys, and even the ability to get out of bed in the morning, becomes a source of immense gratitude. The experience of suffering often exposes the fragility of life, making people acutely aware that nothing is promised and that every moment of peace, health, or joy is a gift. This realization creates in them a sense of deep thankfulness for the things they might have previously overlooked or taken for granted. After enduring hardship, small blessings feel magnified. The warm embrace of a loved one, the sound of laughter, or a beautiful sunset. All of these things come to be seen through a lens of gratitude. People who have suffered deeply begin to recognize that each day is precious, and they are less likely to take it for granted. Their suffering has taught them to cherish the moments of calm, joy, and connection that once seemed commonplace. Moreover, suffering teaches people to appreciate even the smallest victories. When a person has faced deep pain, they understand what it means to struggle, to fight for each step, and to endure. As a result, they begin to find gratitude in the process of recovery, in each small sign of progress, even when the road ahead still feels long. Every step forward, no matter how small, becomes a victory worth celebrating. Was the chief. This shift in perspective changes how they approach life. It teaches them that gratitude is not just for the easy moments, but for the moments of struggle as well. Additionally, people who have suffered deeply often extend this sense of gratitude to others. They understand the value of kindness, compassion, and support because they know what it means to need these things. As they grow in their own gratitude, they are more likely to express it toward others, whether through words of appreciation, acts of kindness, or simply being present for those who are struggling. Their suffering, in many ways, has opened their hearts to the beauty of gratitude, not just as a response to good fortune, but as a way of life that acknowledges the value of each moment, every person, and every experience. Suffering has a unique way of bringing into sharp focus the fleeting nature of life. For those who have endured deep pain, the awareness of life's transience becomes impossible to ignore. They begin to see more clearly that time is not something to be taken for granted, that every moment is precious, and that the days, hours, and even seconds pass more quickly than they realize. Deep suffering forces individuals to confront their own mortality and the impermanence of all things, and this realization profoundly alters the way they approach life. People who have experienced significant suffering often gain a new perspective on what is truly important. They become more aware of the fact that nothing in this world is permanent, that everything, whether it is their health, their relationships, or their material possessions, can be lost in an instant. This understanding does not lead them to despair, but rather to a deeper appreciation for the present moment. They begin to prioritize what matters most, focusing less on the fleeting desires of the world and more on the things that bring true fulfillment: love, connection, peace, and purpose. This awareness of life's transience also helps people who have suffered deeply to let go of grudges, regrets, and the small things that once seemed important. They recognize that holding on to bitterness or anger is a waste of time when life is so short. The pain they have experienced teaches them that life is too precious to spend it weighed down by negativity. As they grow in this understanding, they become more focused on living in a way that reflects their newfound values, investing their time and energy in things that truly matter. Moreover, this deeper understanding of life's transience often leads to a greater sense of urgency. People who have suffered deeply know that time is not guaranteed, and they are more likely to take risks, pursue their passions, and engage fully in life. They are less likely to procrastinate or delay their dreams, understanding that the opportunity to live life fully may not always be there. As a result, they often become more intentional about how they spend their time, making sure that they are using it in ways that align with their values and bring them closer to the people and experiences that truly matter. Suffering often opens the door to an understanding of forgiveness that those who have not experienced deep pain may never fully grasp. When a person has been wronged or hurt deeply, the weight of that pain can lead to a decision to hold on to the hurt, to nurture anger and resentment, or to let go and forgive. For many, the journey of suffering teaches them that forgiveness is not merely an act of mercy toward others, but a path toward their own freedom. Those who have suffered deeply often come to realize that the weight of unforgiveness is heavier than the pain of letting go, and in choosing to forgive, they release themselves from the chains of bitterness and anger that would otherwise hold them captive. Through suffering, people learn that forgiveness is not about excusing the wrongs that have been done to them or minimizing their pain. It was the chief, is about freeing themselves from the toxic hold that unforgiveness has on their heart and mind. They come to understand that holding on to grudges or resentment only keeps them tethered to the very thing that caused them pain. By choosing forgiveness, they step into a place of healing and peace, breaking the cycle of hurt and creating room for emotional and spiritual growth. Moreover, the experience of deep suffering often fosters empathy for others, making it easier for them to forgive. When a person has faced great pain, they begin to recognize that everyone carries their own burdens and that no one is without fault or imperfection. As they reflect on their own struggles and how others may have hurt them in their time of pain, they are more able to extend grace to those who have wronged them. They understand that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but a powerful act of strength, a conscious decision to release what was done in order to make room for healing, both for themselves and for the person they forgive. Forgiveness, in this sense, becomes an act of love, not only for others, but also for oneself. People who have suffered deeply recognize that true healing can only occur when they let go of past wounds. They begin to see that the act of forgiving is not just about reconciling with others, but about freeing themselves from the emotional burdens that prevent them from moving forward. In forgiving, they make room for peace, and they experience a newfound sense of emotional liberation that would not have been possible without embracing the power of forgiveness. People who have suffered deeply often emerge from their trials with a heightened sense of compassion for others. The pain was the chief. The pain they have endured opens their hearts to the suffering of those around them in ways they may not have experienced before. When a person faces profound hardship, it forces them to understand in a very personal and intimate way what it feels like to struggle, to hurt, and to feel lost. As a result, they develop a greater empathy for others who are experiencing pain, and they are more likely to reach out in kindness, understanding, and support. The journey through deep suffering often strips away any sense of superiority or judgment, and people who have been through hardship come to recognize that everyone has their own battles to fight. They understand that no one is exempt from hardship, and that everyone's pain is valid, whether it is visible or hidden. This realization breeds a deep compassion that goes beyond mere sympathy. Rather than seeing others' struggles from a distance, people who have suffered deeply are able to walk alongside those in pain, offering not only words of comfort but a shared understanding of what it means to endure. Moreover, Their compassion is often born out of a genuine desire to alleviate the suffering of others, as they have felt firsthand the weight of pain. They are often more willing to listen, to offer help, or to just be present for those in need. The empathy they develop through their own struggles becomes a tool for healing and support for others. As they connect with people who are going through difficult times, they do not just offer advice or solutions, they offer understanding, a listening ear, and the reassurance that they are not alone. This increased compassion also leads to a broader sense of community. People who have suffered deeply understand the importance of having others walk with them in their darkest moments. And they are often more inclined to offer the same support to others. They realize that the bonds of shared pain can create powerful connections, and they begin to value the importance of being there for others who are suffering. Their compassion becomes not just a feeling, but an active expression of love and care as they seek to make a difference in the lives of those who are hurting. Through their own experience of suffering, they find that the act of caring for others becomes a vital part of their own healing process. In the journey through deep suffering, a person is often shaped in ways that transcend the pain itself. While the road may be long and filled with hardtack, the transformation that occurs can be profound. Was the chief, those who have suffered deeply emerge with a new understanding of themselves and the world around them. Their faith becomes stronger, their patience more enduring, and their sense of empathy deeper. They gain a perspective on life's fleeting nature and develop an appreciation for the simple blessings that once went unnoticed. Through their suffering, they find meaning, compassion, and a renewed sense of purpose that empowers them to live more fully and love more deeply. In the end, suffering has the potential to refine, not define the individual. It brings forth a resilience that allows them to face future challenges with a heart that has been tested and made stronger, not just for themselves, but for others as well.